What's up, bitches and gentlemen? No. Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm just going to be showing y'all how I make vintage, dark, analog sounding samples for guys like Travis Scott, Eli Sostre, Forever Friday, guys like that. And here's what the sample's going to sound like. So yeah, super dark, key-based, kind of bouncy, vintage, analog, all those keywords sounding sample. Before I start breaking it down, I do want to plug my kit real quick. It's the Duality drum kit I just dropped. Over 300 really good sounds in there. You can use code VIDEO25 for 25% off of that and all my other kits on my website. I'll leave the link in the description. But yeah, let's get into it. Alright, so the first thing I started with was a piano. I just used the Noir felt piano in Contact and I tweaked a few settings. I just went ahead and made this pattern. I actually made the pattern with halftime on because I knew I wanted that like dark, kind of warped, weird feeling. And I just used my favorite chord progression these days, which is just a 4-1. So in this case, it's a G minor down to a D minor. And since we are in the key of D minor and G is the fourth of that scale, it's just a 4-1. It's a really satisfying play goal cadence if you want to get nerdy with it. So it started out as just this. And then I just started clicking in extra notes. I did Alt S to like strum with the FL Studio strummer, but I also did some manual tweaking by just holding Alt and clicking and dragging around. But in the end, it ended up sounding like this. For the effects on that, just have that halftime like I talked about, and then 2 EQs just to lower those lows and bring out some of the highs. The second thing I did on the sample was I just duplicated that Contact piano and I messed with a few of the knobs again. And then I clicked in this pattern, which sounds like this by itself. Which kind of sounds weird by itself, but when you play it with the keys, sounds pretty sick. I kept it really dark using a lot of half steps and switching it up in the second half by just like copying it and boosting it an octave and then doing a few alterations. And then I also randomized the velocities with Alt R and I manually mess with some of them as well. And on that version of the keys, I just have that same EQ. And then the VHS preset in RC20. The next thing I did was I added a bass one-shot. This is the Discover bass from the Mirage one-shot kit by Bass One and Pilgrim. Played a super simple pattern following the root notes at max velocity with one extra note. Nothing too crazy. I added a RC20 to that, the distorted fat iron, and then I also pulled it a little more mono because it was pretty wide to begin with. The next element I added was a violin. This is from the Nocturne Violin Bank. Here's the pattern. I did end up bouncing it just so that I could fix some of the timing a little bit because it was a little off, but this is what this sounds like. For effects, we have a Valhalla Room, have a Vinyl 2 preset of RC20, and then a EQ. And like I said, I just bounced that out to audio. And then I ended up changing the key of the sample once I had like finished it and put it all together before I rendered it out. So I did bring the pitch down 700 cents. And it sounds like this with the keys and the bass. And once I had that stuff down, I was getting kind of like a Italian vibe from this. I don't really know how to describe it. That's just kind of the vibe I was getting. So I went into arcade, and a really underutilized function of arcade is just this search function. For this, I just used the instrument drop down and I chose trumpet, and then I went to the genre and I chose classical, and I found this bank called flat concerto. And from messing around in there, I found these two cool sounds. And then I rendered that out to audio as well because it was kind of off time. And I added a shaper box, which isn't loading for some reason, but it was just a half note sidechain, kind of pumping feeling. And then a couple of EQs, and that sounded like this. So it ends up just being a pretty cool texture in the background. And then, like I said, I was getting kind of a classical Italian vibe from it, so I just went back into arcade, searched guitar classical this time, and I found this eerie silence bank. This is why I really like using the search feature of arcade, because I would never think to look in the nightmare line in arcade for cool guitar sounds, but it ended up having some pretty sick sounds. And the second one sounds like this. Rendered those out to audio again, and once I pitched it to the right key, it sounds like this. The effects on there are just an EQ and a reverb. Then the last melodic element I added, I felt like it could use one more kind of textural thing. So I went back into arcade and I found this bank. Same thing, I just searched guitar and classical, and I came to this interwoven bank and I found these two sounds. So they kind of just serve as like transitions between the 4-bar sections. For effects, it's just a pretty heavy reverb and an EQ bandpass. So it sounds like this with the keys. So they're kind of just like swell effects, but it adds a pretty cool effect. And finally, I added a couple perc loops from some Only One kits. I just stretched them to be 8 bars and I chopped them up a little bit. And then I did a bandpass, a stereo shaper on the shrinked presets, and a CLA compressor just to drop the peaks down a little bit. So those two together sound like this with the sample. So it's super subtle, but it just adds some nice texture and some nice bounce in there, and it gives the producer that uses the sample some indication of like what kind of bounce you had in mind for it as well. And yeah, that was pretty much the sample. I just dragged everything out into its own little section and left some space for the reverb tails so that when you send it out to other producers, they can chop it and arrange it how they want to, and they don't have to use the arrangement you gave them, which is a huge key. Like if you make samples, do that, period. I know for a fact a lot of producers won't even use a sample if they don't have the stems to it like this. So yeah, definitely do that. But yeah, the final step for this was just mastering. On my master, I have a sketch cassette just to darken it up and make it sound older. Then I have a soft clipper, just boosting that up quite a bit. And that's it, that's the sample. I will play it again right after this. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all that boring shit. But it does really help me out, so please do that. And go check out my main channel, Instinct, my second R&B channel. Make sure you follow me on Instagram at prodby_instinct, and go cop my kits. Use the code video25 for 25% off. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Peace.